The trial of lies. The great chamber of the Galactic Council was shaped like a giant circle, with hundreds of tall seats rising up in tiers. Every seat was filled with alien leaders, each wearing the colors of their worlds. The ceiling was high and filled with soft white lights that tried to make the room feel calm. But the atmosphere was anything but calm. In the center of the chamber stood a single figure, Ambassador Kane, the human representative. His wrists were bound in glowing energy cuffs, and two guards with sharp, insect-like limbs stood on either side of him. Kane's face was calm, but his eyes were cold and alert. He knew what this trial really was. It was not justice. It was a show. The council chair, a tall, insectoid alien with a shimmering gold exoskeleton, tapped her staff on the floor. The sound echoed across the chamber. "Ambassador Kane," she said in a sharp, clicking voice, "you stand accused of orchestrating the destruction of the Valoran trade convoy. Thousands of lives were lost. What do you say to these charges?" Kane raised his head. His voice was steady. "I say the charges are false. I say your own investigation proves it wasn't us." The crowd erupted in murmurs, strange voices blending into a mix of hisses, growls, and electronic tones. Some aliens laughed. Others glared at Kane like predators ready to strike. The council chair slammed her staff again. "Enough! The evidence is clear. Witnesses place human ships near the convoy. Debris with Terran markings was found." "That debris," Kane said, his voice rising, "was planted? And the witnesses? Paid actors from your own security forces. This is not a trial, it's a setup." Gasps and whispers spread across the chamber, but the chair only smiled. It was the cold smile of someone who already knew the ending. "You dare accuse this council of lying?" She hissed. Kane met her gaze without blinking. "I dare tell the truth." From the human delegation's seat, two other representatives, Commander Rains and Dr. Liu, watched in tense silence. Both knew this wasn't going to end with words. The council had hated humanity since the day Earth refused to join their military bloc. Now, they had found the perfect excuse to make an example. The trial moved too quickly. Alien witnesses stepped forward, reciting lines like they had memorized them. A screen displayed grainy footage of human ships firing on the Valoran convoy. Kane pointed out flaws, the wrong ship markings, impossible flight patterns, but each time he spoke, his voice was drowned out by the chair's interruptions. Within an hour, the so-called trial was over. The council chair rose from her seat and raised her staff high. "Ambassador Kane of Terra," she announced, "you are found guilty of war crimes against the Valoran people. The sentence." She paused for dramatic effect, letting her eyes sweep across the chamber. "Is death. Execution will be carried out immediately." By flame, the chamber went silent. Even some council members shifted uncomfortably. Flaying was an old punishment, banned by many civilizations for being too cruel. But the council wanted this to hurt not just Kane, but every human watching. Two guards grabbed Kane by the arms and began dragging him toward the raised execution platform in the center of the chamber. The platform's floor was lined with dull black metal, and strange vents surrounded its edge. Above, a set of nozzles pointed downward like the mouths of metal snakes. From the human delegation's seat, Commander Rains stood. "This is murder. The Terran Union will not—" "Silence," the chair snapped. "Remove him from the chamber." Two alien guards blocked Rains, holding shock staffs ready. Dr. Liu reached for her communicator, trying to send a message back to Earth, but the device was already jammed. Kane was forced to his knees at the center of the platform. The chair stepped closer, her gold armor reflecting the light. "Let this be a lesson to any who think they can defy the council," she said, her voice carrying across the galaxy through the live broadcast. With a wave of her hand, the executioner, an alien in black robes, pressed a control on his wrist. The nozzles above Kane roared to life. A jet of pale blue fire shot downward, surrounding him in a deadly circle. The heat hit instantly. Kane clenched his teeth, refusing to give them the satisfaction of hearing him beg. The flames crept closer, licking the edges of his uniform, wrapping him in a curtain of burning light. In the Terran capital back on Earth, a large screen in the presidential command room displayed the broadcast in real time. Generals, ministers, and the president herself watched in grim silence. As the fire engulfed Kane, one of the generals slammed his fist into the table. The president didn't look away. Her voice was quiet but firm. "Send the message," she said. Across Earth's defense network, encrypted signals raced into deep space. Hidden beacons lit up. Subspace channels went active for the first time in decades. In a dark asteroid field on the far edge of human space, a sleeping warship larger than any built in the last 100 years awoke. Its engines flared to life, and its black hole glistened in the starlight. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. The flame that ignited Earth, the flames died down, leaving only a scorched platform. The Galactic Council chamber was silent for a moment, then filled with a low hum of alien chatter. The chair raised her staff and spoke into the cameras. "Justice is served. Let all who defy the Council meet the same fate." It was meant to show strength. Instead, it lit a fire in every human heart. On Earth, the broadcast was replayed again and again across every screen. The last image of Ambassador Kane standing tall, even as the fire closed in, burned into the minds of billions. People stopped in the streets to watch. News anchors could barely keep their voices steady. In the Terran presidential command room, the air was heavy with anger. President Alina Ward stood at the head of the table, her eyes fixed on the frozen image of Kane's last moment. "They think this ends here," she said quietly. "They have no idea what they've started." Admiral Soren, commander of Earth's strategic fleet, leaned forward. "Ma'am, Operation Iron Veil has been on standby for decades. We can mobilize within hours. All we need is your word." The president nodded once. "You have it." In orbit around Mars, massive hangar doors began to open. From within, the dark shapes of Terran warships drifted out into the light. These were not the standard patrol vessels the galaxy had seen. These ships were monsters black-hulled, bristling with weapons, their armor layered with experimental alloys the Council didn't even know existed. Each ship bore a single emblem. On its side, a silver eagle clutching a burning star. Back in the Council chamber, the alien leaders had already moved on to their next session. They spoke of trade, borders, and minor disputes, as if burning a human alive was just another line on the agenda. But far from their glittering city world, deep in the cold of space, a different kind of council was forming. On Titan, Saturn's largest moon, a secret meeting was underway in an underground base. Military leaders, scientists, and intelligence agents gathered around a holographic display of the galaxy. Red markers blinked across it, every known fleet position of the Galactic Council. "This is not about revenge," Admiral Soren told them. His voice was steady, but the steel in his tone made everyone listen. "This is about showing them the price of their arrogance. We will strike once. We will strike hard. And when we are done, they will never touch a human again." General Kayla, head of planetary defense, crossed her arms. "And the other species? The ones who stayed silent during the trial? They made their choice," Soren said coldly. "Silence is complicity." Back on Earth, the streets were alive with movement. Volunteers flooded recruitment centers. Factories shifted overnight from producing civilian goods to building weapons, ammunition, and starship parts. Every sector of human society seemed to move in unison, driven by a single thought: this will not happen again. In the far reaches of deep space, Cloaked scout ships shadowed Council patrols. Every movement was tracked, every supply line noted. The galaxy had no idea it was already under surveillance by hundreds of Terran eyes. Meanwhile, in the Council capital, whispers began to spread. Some alien diplomats felt uneasy. They remembered the story's old war tales of humanity's last stand during the Orion conflict, when a single Terran fleet held off an armada 10 times its size. Those stories had faded into legend, but now they were starting to feel real again. One young Council aide, a reptilian clerk with pale scales, leaned toward his superior and whispered, "What if the humans retaliate?" His superior scoffed. "With what? Their fleets are small. Their economy is nothing compared to ours. If they move against us, we'll crush them in days." The aide didn't answer. But later that night, he accessed the restricted Council archives. He looked at the old war footage humans in bulky armor, fighting with weapons that glowed like captured suns. Ships that moved faster than light should allow. Fleets that appeared where there had been empty space only moments before. He logged out and told no one what he saw, because deep down, he wasn't sure the Council could crush humanity so easily. On the edge of human space, the first wave of Terran supercarriers began to gather. Each was a floating fortress, capable of carrying entire fleets inside its armored hull. Their weapons arrays were so powerful they could split a moon in half. On the flagship Resolute, Admiral Soren stood on the bridge, watching the endless stars beyond the viewport. "Set the course," he ordered. "Council space." The helmsman hesitated. "Sir, are we going straight to the capital?" Soren's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. "Not yet. First, we remind them of Kane." In the war room behind him, a massive holographic portrait of Ambassador Kane had been placed above the battle map. Below it, 3 words glowed in red. Remember the flame god the engines roared to life. Humanity was coming. The first strike, the Resolute, moved through deep space like a predator in the dark. No running lights, no beacon, only the faint hum of its engines. Around it, more than 100 Terran warships followed in silent formation. Each one carried weapons the Galactic Council had never faced and never prepared for. Inside the war room, Admiral Soren studied the holographic map. It showed a cluster of red dots, Council military outposts along a key trade route. They were far from the capital, lightly defended, and confident in their safety. "They won't see us coming," Commander Rhea said quietly, her eyes fixed on the map. "When the first shot is fired, they'll think it's an accident. By the time they realize the truth, it'll be too late." Soren nodded. "No prisoners, no warnings. This is the message." The fleet dropped out of hyperspace near the first target, a refueling station orbiting a barren moon. Council freighters and escort ships floated nearby, their crews completely unaware of the danger. From the Resolute's bridge, the station looked almost peaceful, a tiny ring of lights against the black. Soren's voice cut through the silence. "Target all defense systems. Fire on my mark." The weapons officers waited, fingers hovering over their controls. The tension was heavy, every breath measured. Mark. The first volley lit up the void streams of plasma, railgun slugs, and energy beams tearing through the cold darkness. The station's shields lasted less than 3 seconds before collapsing. Explosions rippled across its hull. The freighters tried to scatter, but precision strikes ripped through them one by one dot in less than 2 minutes. It was over. Nothing remained but debris. Commander Rhea exhaled slowly. First target eliminated. Soren didn't look away from the viewport, log the footage, send it on all Council channels. Across the galaxy, alien worlds received the broadcast. The footage showed the attack in chilling clarity, Council ships reduced to wreckage, the Terran fleet moving with cold, precision. And at the end, the video faded to the image of Ambassador Kane, standing tall in the flames dot. Then came the words, "This is for Kane. We are coming." The message sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council. In the capital, emergency meetings were called. Some demanded immediate retaliation. Others urged caution. Remembering old warnings about humanity's ability to fight wars, they had no business winning. Council. High Admiral Theros slammed his clawed hand against the table. They dare to strike us openly? Then we will burn there. Worlds to ash. But another voice, quieter, spoke from the shadows. It was Elder Vishar, one of the oldest members of the council. You forget history, Theros. You forget what happened the last time humanity was provoked. Theros bared his teeth. Those are myths. Are they? Vishar's eyes narrowed. If they are myths, why did our ancestors forbid entering Terran space for over a century? The argument grew, but outside the chamber, panic was spreading. Trade fleets rerouted, border patrols doubled, and rumors of more Terran ships moving through deep space began to surface. Meanwhile, the Resolute was already on its way to the next target. This one was larger, a full military base on the frozen moon of Solvrek. It had heavy weapons, minefields, and a garrison of thousands. From orbit, the base looked like a fortress of steel buried under layers of ice. But Soren had no intention of engaging it in a long siege. Instead, he ordered the deployment of the Black Spear, a weapon so secret that only a handful of humans even knew it existed. The Black Spear was a projectile made of condensed neutronium, wrapped in a field that ignored shields entirely. When it struck, it didn't explode. It simply erased whatever it touched. From the bridge, the crew watched as the weapon was launched. It cut through space in utter silence. The moment it hit the base, an entire section of the moon's surface vanished along, with the fortress built on it. The rest of the base didn't even have time to react before the second and third strikes followed. Within 5 minutes, Solvrek base was nothing but a crater of steam and molten rock. Soren's voice was steady as he gave the next order. Transmit this as well, and make sure the council understands this is not war. This is justice. In the capital, the second video caused chaos. The destruction of Solvrek base was not just a military loss, it was a humiliation. The council had considered it impenetrable. Now it was gone without a single human casualty. For the first time in decades, fear spread among the ruling species. And deep within the council chambers, the Empress of Valtora, one of the most feared leaders in the galaxy, watched the footage in silence. Her eyes narrowed. So, humanity has woken up. She turned to her generals. Prepare my fleet. This will end in blood. Back on the Resolute, Soren watched the stars, knowing the retaliation would come. But that was the plan. They wanted the council to strike first. Because when they did, humanity would unleash its full strength. The retaliation the council didn't wait long. Within 48 hours of the Solvrek strike, their fleets were mobilized. Every news channel in the galaxy showed massive armadas gathering at rally points, hundreds of warships, troop carriers, and dreadnoughts bristling with weapons. In the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, High Admiral Theros stood before the assembly, his voice booming. They want war? We will give them war. We will burn their worlds. We will show humanity what it means to challenge the council. The Empress of Valtora sat in silence, her sharp eyes scanning the chamber. When Theros finished, she rose to her feet. You will not show them, she said coldly. You will end them. Her voice left no room for doubt. This was no longer a punitive mission. It was extermination. The first blow came at Proxima Outpost, a small Terran listening station on the edge of council space. Hundreds of alien warships emerged from hyperspace without warning, surrounding the tiny station like vultures. Inside, Lieutenant Mara Vance received the first detection ping. Contact, multiple contacts, no hundreds. The crew scrambled to send an emergency signal, but jamming fields cut them off. The station's few defense turrets spat fire into the void, but they were overwhelmed in seconds. From orbit, the aliens fired plasma lances that melted through the station's hull. Within minutes, the outpost was gone, erased from the map. The Council made sure the footage of the destruction was sent directly to Terra. The message was clear. We can hit you too. When the report reached the Resolute, the bridge fell silent. Admiral Soren's jaw tightened. They want to scare us, Commander Rhea said quietly. They just opened the door, Soren replied. Now we hit back harder. But the Council wasn't finished. Within the next day, they struck 2 more. Terran colonies, Rather Prime and Sindara 4. Rather's defense grid lasted 12 minutes before collapsing. Sindara was glassed from orbit. Its surface turned to molten seas. Millions were dead. On Earth, the Terran High Command gathered in a secure underground chamber. The air was thick with grief and rage. They've crossed the line, General Cato sighed, slamming his fist on the table. We need to deploy the full fleet. We can't yet, Fleet Marshal Vega countered. If we send everything now, we lose our advantage. We need them to commit more ships, spread them thin before. We crush them. Soren's face appeared on the holoscreen from the Resolute. I can make that happen, he said, but I'll need the Shadow Wings. At those words, the room went silent. The Shadow Wings were humanity's most secret weapon squadrons, of stealth warships so advanced that the Council didn't even know they existed. 2 days later, the Resolute received new orders. Their mission: lure the Council's largest strike force into a trap. The bait would be a false supply convoy, dozens of freighters loaded with decoys, broadcasting an open distress signal in Council-controlled space. When the alien fleets detected it, they moved in immediately. From the bridge of her flagship, the Empress herself watched the convoy through the viewport. They think we are blind, she said softly. Crush them. The Council ships moved in formation, weapons locking on. But just as they prepared to fire, every freighter in the convoy vanished, slipping into hyperspace in perfect synchronization, in their place. The Shadow Wings emerged from the block. The alien commanders didn't even have time to react. Human stealth bombers cut through their formation like ghosts, firing weapons that ignored shields and tore through hulls. Dreadnoughts vanished in bursts of white light. Battleships cracked apart under kinetic strikes. The Resolute dropped out of hyperspace right in the middle of the chaos, unleashing broadside after broadside. Soren's voice echoed through the comms. This is for Rather. This is for Sindara. For 20 minutes, the battle raged. By the time it ended, over half the Council fleet was gone, and the rest fled in disarray. Far away, in the Council chamber, panic spread. Reports came in too quickly to process. Fleets gone, colonies under attack, military stations silent. The Empress stood in the shadows, watching the chaos with a strange calm. They are not like the others we've crushed, she murmured. They fight like predators, relentless, precise. One of her generals stepped forward. Shall we retreat and regroup? She turned her eyes on him, cold and sharp. No, we take the fight to their heart, to Earth itself. Back on the Resolute, Soren reviewed the battle footage with his crew. They'll come for Earth now, Rhea said. That's exactly what we want, Soren replied. When they arrive, we'll be ready. The camera feed switched to a classified channel, showing images of massive human supercarriers leaving. The Sol system ships so large they blotted out the stars. Humanity wasn't done fighting. They were just getting started. Earth's last stand, the sky above Earth, was no longer peaceful. From the Orbital command station, you could see the glint of steel. Hundreds of Terran warships holding position, forming a living wall around the planet Dot in the war room, deep under. The Atlantic Alliance headquarters, Fleet Marshal Vega, stood at the central table, eyes locked on the holographic projection. "They're coming," she said. "How many?" General Cato asked. "All of them," Vega replied. "This is their kill strike." On the Resolute, Admiral Soren received the same intelligence report. His crew was silent, watching the massive red wave of enemy signatures creeping toward Earth. The Council had committed its greatest force, yet over 800 warships, including 8 Dreadnought-class flagships, each one the size of a small moon. Commander Rhea leaned in. "If they break the line—" "They won't," Soren cut her off. "We're not giving them the chance." The plan was already in motion. Earth's defense grid was fully armed with thousands of orbital cannons, missile batteries, and planetary shield generators were ready to fire. But the real weapon was waiting just beyond the Kuiper Belt, cloaked and silent, the Eidolon fleet. The Council's arrival was like the sky tearing open. Hyperspace rifts flashed in the black, spitting out alien ships in perfect formation. The flagship of the fleet, the Empyrean's Wrath, took point. Its hull covered in glowing runes of war. Inside the Council war room aboard the Wrath, High Admiral Theros gave the order. "Advance, target their shield grid, crush it." The Council fleet surged forward, firing in coordinated waves. The first plasma strikes hit Earth's shields, sending shockwaves of light rippling across the sky. Civilians on the surface watched, in silence, the glow reflecting in their eyes. Some prayed. Some clenched their fists. Everyone waited for the wall to break. Then the order came from Vega. Phase 1 fire at will. Earth's defense grid roared to life. Missiles streaked upward from silos. Railguns fired projectiles at near light speed, punching through the leading alien destroyers. Orbital cannons bathed the void in golden fire, ripping entire formations apart. The Resolute and her escorts dove into the fight, weaving between capital ships, targeting engines and bridge towers. Soren's voice was cold and steady over comms. "Don't waste shots. Every round counts." The aliens pressed harder. Their dreadnoughts opened up with planet-killer cannons, pounding the shield barrier. With each strike, the barrier flickered. On the Wrath, Theros smirked. "They can't hold this forever." The Empress, standing beside him, said nothing. But her eyes scanned the tactical display, noting something strange. Large areas of space behind the human lines were empty. She didn't realize yet what that meant. Phase 2 began. Without warning, hyperspace ripples flared on the Council's flanks. Out of the void came humanity's ghost fleet, the Eidolon fleet, 300 black-holed warships, each cloaked until the very second they attacked. They struck like wolves. Torpedoes exploded inside enemy formations. Stealth cruisers fired precision railgun shots that pierced dreadnought reactors in a single hit. The Council's perfect formation shattered in minutes. On the Resolute, Rhea grinned. "They didn't even know we were here." "Now they do," Soren replied. "Push them into the kill zone." Earth's defensive wall opened just enough for the Council fleet to surge inward, believing they'd broken through. It was a trap. As soon as the alien ships entered the designated kill zone, the supercarriers emerged from behind Earth's shadow colossal human vessels, armed with entire cities' worth of weapons. Their combined firepower was apocalyptic. Wave after wave of Council ships disintegrated under the barrage. Still, the aliens fought back with fury. The Wrath charged forward, determined to breach Earth's atmosphere and fire on the surface. Dozens of human ships moved to block it, but its armor was nearly impenetrable. From his command chair, Soren made a decision. Target the Wrath's command bridge. Full power to the forward guns. The Resolute tore through enemy escorts, closing the distance to the dreadnought. The two massive ships traded fire at point-blank range, a void between them filled with burning wreckage. Finally, a railgun slug from the Resolute smashed into the raft's bridge tower, blowing it apart in a cloud of molten metal and bodies. Alien flagship drifted, powerless. The Empress, still alive inside a shielded chamber deep within the raft, stared at the damage in disbelief. Her empire's finest fleet broken in front of her, but her shock turned to a slow, dangerous smile. "They fight like us," she murmured. "Perhaps they are worth my full attention after all." In the war room under the Atlantic, Vega received the update. "The line is holding. Casualty rates are high, but they're retreating." "No," Soren's voice came over the comms. "They're not retreating. Not yet." And he was right. The Council had one last move left, something that would make Part 6 even deadlier. The Empress's gambit, the battlefield above Earth, was a graveyard of burning ships. Wreckage drifted in silent arcs, glowing faintly as fires slowly died in the cold vacuum. The Council fleet was in retreat, or at least, that's what it looked like. In the Atlantic Alliance war room, Fleet Marshal Vega studied the tactical map. Enemy signatures were pulling back in a scattered arc, just far enough to stay out of Earth's weapon range. "They're running," General Cato said. "It's over." "No." Vega shook her head slowly. "This is too clean. They're not broken, they're repositioning." On the shattered but still operational Empyrean's Wrath, the Empress stood in the center of her command chamber. She was no longer furious. She was calm, too calm. "Report," she said. A surviving fleet officer stepped forward, bowing. "Our losses are severe, Majesty, but our superweapon remains intact." Her eyes lit with cold fire. "Then we will remind the humans what it means to insult the galactic throne." The superweapon was known only in whispers. The Shroud. Lance. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a fleet killer. Once activated, it could generate a dimensional rift that swallowed entire formations into an unescapable void. The Empress's plan was simple and ruthless. Lure the humans into a counterattack. Make them commit every heavy ship they had, and then erase them in one strike. On the Resolute, Admiral Soren watched the alien retreat through the viewport. Commander Rhea frowned beside him. "They're baiting us," she said. "Yes," Soren agreed. "But if we let them regroup, they'll be back with reinforcements from across the galaxy." Rhea looked at him sharply. "So what's the move?" Soren's voice was grim. "We take the bait on our terms." Phase 1 of humanity's counterstrike began. The Eidolon fleet and the Resolute strike group advanced at flank speed, tearing into the stragglers at the edge of the Council's retreat path. Each human ship kept its formation loose, ready to scatter at the first sign of trouble. The Council allowed them to advance, their own ships giving just enough resistance to look genuine. The Empress watched from her command platform, a smile playing on her lips. "They think they're clever," she murmured, "but they will all burn in the Shroud." Then came the moment. The Rav's forward section split open, revealing a massive, black, spiked device, the Shroud Lance. It began to glow, pulling energy from every surrounding ship. Sensors aboard. The Resolute went wild. Lights flashed red. Warning sirens wailed. Rhea gripped the console. "Admiral, that thing's charging fast." Soren didn't hesitate. "Signal Vega. Phase 2 now." Across the human fleet, hidden signal buoys activated. Seconds later, dozens of hyperspace gates snapped open, revealing Earth's second wave. The Helios, Atlas, Vanguard, and hundreds of support ships poured into the battle from 3 different angles, catching the Council completely off guard. But the Shroud Lance didn't care about numbers. Its growing energy vortex began pulling in everything nearby wreckage. Drones, even entire corvettes that weren't quick enough to escape. In the Alliance war room, Vega barked orders. "All ships, fire everything you have at the Lance. Bring it down before it fires." Thousands of weapons lit up the void, railgun slugs, plasma beams, missile swarms. The firepower was enough to crack a moon, but the Lance's shield absorbed most of it. Shimmering like liquid night, the Empress watched the futile barrage with quiet satisfaction. They still don't understand. The Shroud doesn't need to survive. It only needs to fire. Inside the Resolute's hangar, Soren gave a desperate order. Deploy the Shadow Wing. The Shadow Wing was humanity's most dangerous ace stealth. Dropships carrying elite strike teams. Their mission was suicide simple. Land on the Wrath, breach the weapon chamber, and overload the Lance from the inside. Among them was Captain Arlen Voss, a scarred veteran who'd survived the siege of Vega Prime. His voice came over comms. We'll get it done, Admiral. Just make sure there's still a home for us to come back to. The Shadow Wing raced through enemy fire, cloaked until the last possible second. 4 ships were vaporized instantly. The rest slammed into the Wrath's hull, cutting through with breaching charges. Inside, the corridors were a slaughterhouse. Alien soldiers met them with plasma rifles, blades, and brute force. Humans fought through in brutal close quarters, step by bloody step. Finally, Arlen's team reached the Lance's core chamber. The weapon's heart was a swirling void, contained only by magnetic cages. Plant the charges. Arlen shouted over the deafening hum. Outside, the Lance's glow reached critical. The vortex expanded, its edge brushing the Resolute's flank and tearing chunks from its armor. Soren clenched his fists. We're out of time. Then, a single coded transmission cut through the noise. Package set. Detonating in 5. The void erupted in a blinding flash. The Lance imploded, collapsing in on itself and ripping the Wrath's entire forward section into the dimensional rift before it. Sealed shut. The shockwave hurled ships from every side into chaotic spins. When the light faded, the Shroud Lance was gone, and so was half of the alien flagship. In the chaos, the Empress still stood, gripping the edge of her command chair, her smile returning. You've taken my weapon, she whispered, but you've also taken my patience. Her next move would not be tactical. It would be personal. The final message, the wreckage of the Empyrean's Wrath, floated in silence. Half of its massive body torn away. Fires burned in the open vacuum, licking at twisted metal before dying in the cold. The battle was over, at least, for now. Humanity's fleet held the field. On the Resolute, Admiral Soren stood at the central holotable. The tactical map was clear of enemy signatures, except for one. The remains of the alien flagship, drifting just outside weapon range. Finished, Commander Rhea said. Her voice held relief, but also caution. Soren didn't take his eyes off the screen. No, she's still there. Inside the crippled Wrath, the Empress walked through smoke-filled corridors. The lights flickered. Her soldiers lay wounded or dead around her, yet she moved with the calm of someone who hadn't lost, only learned. She entered the main communication chamber. Half the consoles were destroyed, but one massive transmitter still pulsed with power. Her chief aide limped forward. Majesty, we can still send the galaxy-wide broadcast. The Empress smiled faintly. Good. Then humanity will hear my voice, and so will everyone else. On every human ship in the fleet, screens lit up. Audio channels cut from battle chatter to a single voice, clear, cold, and filled with power. This is Empress Sereth of the Zenari throne, she began. Her image appeared tall, regal, her ornate armor scorched but unbroken. You have destroyed my weapon. You have killed my warriors. You think you have won. Her golden eyes narrowed. You have not even begun to understand what war is. In the Alliance war room, Fleet Marshal Vega leaned closer to the screen. Patch me through, she ordered, but the Empress's signal wasn't coming from the human fleet. It was bouncing through 1,000 relay stations across the galaxy. There was no way to interrupt it. "This is not just a message to Earth," the Empress continued. "It is a message to every world, every system, every empire that watches this war with interest. Humanity is dangerous. They are cunning. And they have earned my attention." Her voice dropped into a deadly whisper. "No one survives my attention for long." The feed cut for a heartbeat, replaced by a series of images, high-speed footage of the Shroud Lance's destruction, slowed down to show the humans' victory in painful detail. Then came another image, a massive star map with hundreds of red markers lighting up. "These," the Empress said, "are the fleets already on their way. They will not be sent all at once. They will arrive in waves. I will bleed you slowly, Earth. I will take your colonies, your trade lanes, your allies, until you stand alone. And then I will burn your homeworld from orbit." On the Resolute, the crew listened in silence. Rhea finally broke it. "She's not bluffing." "No," Soren said, his eyes hardened. "And we won't give her the chance." The Empress finished her broadcast with words that would be remembered across the stars. "You have until the first wave arrives to prepare. After that, you belong to me." The transmission ended, leaving nothing but static dot in the silence that followed. Viga's voice came over the fleet channel. "All ships regroup. We're not celebrating, we're fortifying. If she wants to bring the galaxy to our doorstep, then we make sure the doorstep is lined with guns." Soren turned to his crew. "Send word to every shipyard. Double production. I want every supercarrier, every destroyer, every railgun we can build ready before her fleets get here." Rhea smirked despite the tension. "Sounds like we're planning for a war on her scale." "No," Soren said quietly. "We're planning for a war on ours." Far away, in the dark of her shattered flagship, the Empress stood at the viewport. Watching the human fleet pull back into defensive formation, her aide approached. "Majesty, if I may ask why warn them at all? Why not strike without notice?" She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Because fear is a weapon too. Now every human will spend their days looking to the sky, wondering when I will arrive. And when they break, they will know it was me who broke them." In the weeks to come, whispers would spread across the galaxy. Some worlds would rally to humanity's side, fearing the Empress's wrath. Others would secretly pledge support to her, drawn to her promise of crushing Earth's pride. The first wave was already on its way, and somewhere in the black between stars, humanity's shipyards roared to life, because if the Empress wanted the war to be personal, humanity would make sure it ended that way.